we built on from that because it helped us establish credibility and a line of communication to the people of this country, and we just doubled down and we just continued to go.
So that morning when your father called you that he had some gunshots and did you call the president, the commander in chief first? to test the veracity of what your father had said?
No,
the gravity of what was happening?
I had a line of communication to the commander in chief, but there are protocols to follow when something like that happens. Let's call my colleague first, the Minister of Internal Affairs. Call the Chief Minister. I called the Chief of Defense Staff. I called the military leaders. So I could, ended up speaking with other top leaders. And then at some point in the morning, I did speak to His Excellency. So my job was first to get as much information as possible. And then I wanted to make sure that the first time when people woke up, that the first place they got the information about what had happened would be from their government. And that information should be simple, it should be direct, it should be factual, not for lying, not for being bad, not for inclusion.
I remember you said indeed the MOA was broken into.
Very clear, we provided the information about what we had. And you remember, the big thing at the time, when all the international media called me, they wanted me to say that it was a coup. And I said at the time, I did not have enough information to make the determination that it was a coup, because I did not. And that was not my job. The job was to translate what intelligence officials, the military officials do. Felt like a mutiny. To coup, you have to establish intent and capacity. Once they got to that point that actually these people had planned, which I was briefed on, and then I went on air again and I said it was our determination that this was indeed an attempt to overthrow the legitimately elected government of President Julius Maada Bio, and that effort had failed. So we started naming it appropriately as a failed coup.
Okay. Thank you very much. It is Chairman Obah, the Minister of Information and Civic Education. Now let's talk a bit about the just concluded London Town Hall. How did it come about? I mean, there have been so many talks, the issue of cost, the issue of why London. Maybe this is an opportunity for us to untie and all some of this. Now let's start. Why London? Or how did London come about?
The idea is that we will do a civic day. Let me start by defining what the civic day is. Civic day is simply an opportunity for government. Think about it as open day. Somebody say civic day for me, they talk about roles and responsibilities because they look at the literal definition of civic education and they think like we teach civics at school. It is an incomplete understanding. Civic Day is about creating an opportunity for citizenship to happen. Citizenship means you know your rights, responsibilities, but you also have access to information about your government, access to your government, and there's accountability on both sides. It was to practice civics, not to teach civics. That's what we're trying to do. That's why everywhere we've been out in country, it's 2 days. Day one is a quiz on civics for students. Day one is also a debate on various issues, and then you listen to young people. We do workshops. We really try to create a culture of civic educational engagement. And then day two, we hold a modern Athenian public square. Government and the citizens. We talk, we hand them the mic, then we exchange. So what we wanted to do was wherever there are Sierra Leonean citizens, a significant number of them, we want to continue to bring government closer to them, influential. So first we've been doing all across the country. But nobody can deny that we have a massive constituency in our diaspora. The US, massive. I come from the US, that's my home, outside of here. And then the UK, which I argued is probably our most important diaspora. Majority of Sierra Leoneans, when they left here for years, have had a relationship with the United Kingdom. It's an emotional place for us. They spend so much money here. They're looking to come back. They are often stopped by real and imagined problems. many challenges, a mucky, they don't know where for starts, they get challenged. But they have influence. They send information, they do blogs, they write pieces, they speak to the media, they affect their governments, they affect us, our biggest development. They are very important. And multiple reports have said a government must engage the diaspora. So we, in our plan for the civic engagement, after we did the first year here, we said we need to take it overseas. We need to meet our citizens where they are. So we had a plan. We needed to go to the US. We needed to go to the UK. We need to go to continental Europe, Brussels as the hub. And then we'll be opportunistic for other places because there are demands, for example, from Canada, there are demands from Australia, there are demands for Sierra Leoneans who be in China, Sierra Leoneans who be in other parts of the world. But these other places I've called will be our call. But we're not getting money. We cannot just get up in the morning and be like, to go. I can't, to do any event of that nature. I was joking with somebody. Some ministries who were on just one panel took more staff than we did, and we were hosting a whole event because we don't have the resources. I only took one person, my entire team, one person. It's me plus one. So when people talk about cost, you think about that. Think about if anybody would organize an event like that outside of here, they don't fly 10 people there for go. We don't. We fly one person because we try to reduce and really maintain and save public resources, but also because we are opportunistic, we're bold about it. So we had all this vision to do it, but we don't know when. So when His Excellency, the Honorable Vice President, was invited to the Diaspora Investment Conference alongside 4 or 5 ministers, Bank Governor, DG, Investment Board, he reached out to me. He actually wrote to me, inviting me officially to join the investment conference because he wanted me to help shape the conversation. Because we're trying to attract investors to Sierra Leone. That's a good thing. Every year people have gone to these conferences. Nobody knows what they ask for cost. They spend way more money than we will ever spend. Nobody knows what they ask for cost. But because we had such impacts, that's why everybody wants to say. And they cannot go on the substance, so they are finding a way to bring us down. But we're open on the cost. So once the VP said come, we said, VP, what about we take advantage of you headlining and we do an event? Keep in mind the Victoria Moore event was paid. We wanted to do an event where ordinary citizens, all man can come and talk to you and talk to all my government. And the VP said, brilliant idea, let's do another speed day. It was already in our plan, but we needed to be opportunistic. And the VP said, I will help you with 2 things. I'll get you a ticket to go, and I will facilitate for the payment of a venue. That was our biggest cost. The rest of the cost was small, things we could pay for within the ministry for less than $3,000. We could find the money to be able to do that. Imagine, we hosted 500 Sierra Leoneans plus. We have massive impact. We've had great media coverage. The number of brothers and sisters in the UK who have reached out to me and said, you changed our mind. We did not know this was happening in our country. The level of reforms that are happening, the number of fear we had, the number of misinformation we had because of this town hall. That's the power of information. Because we were opportunistic, and we will continue to be opportunistic. When we go to the US for the General Assembly in September, we will host another council.
So what are some of the questions that we have posed, especially to the Vice President? One that has been trending was an answer that the Vice President gave. I think it was a question that someone asked about the prices for commodities. And the Vice President responded by saying onions are cheaper in Sierra Leone compared to 2 neighboring countries, Guinea and Liberia. And some people have taken that with a pinch of salt.
So, the Honorable Vice President spoke. As I've said, I think he delivered a seminar lecture. He was brilliant. The depth of what he spoke about. He started the first 15 to 20 minutes by delivering a lecture on everything in government. Where we are on security, where we are on the peace process, where we are on tripartite, where we are on energy transformation, where we are on the economy, what is happening on the issue of transnational drugs. He addressed it upfront. He talked about diaspora, the role, talked about the healthcare situation, talked about nutrition. He addressed, he gave a state of the nation off the cuff. It was a lecture, it was beautiful. And you could feel that people appreciated that. And again, you're right. And then we opened up for questions after the minister had also spoken. And there was a question on prices. So the vice president said, when you look at prices, we are enjoying a level of stabilization of prices. And he said the question is not just on the prices, because you compare price, just look at the price compared to our neighbors in the sub-region. We actually have favorable comparison. He said, but we have a bigger issue. The pie is too small. Too many people without jobs. Too few industries in the country. And that's exactly what he was saying, was pitching those two things. It's not just that this is cheap or relatively affordable, but if only that one person can afford a bag of rice in a household of 6 people, then the pressure on that one person's income is so huge. His argument, his analysis is what government should continue to do, is to make sure more people in that household have access to jobs and they can contribute. So you can now have, instead of 1 bag of rice, 6 bags of rice. Everybody is doing work. He even went to the fact of saying Pikin the Mama the Papa. It was a brilliant, what happens typically with social media is somebody takes what he had said, the first part out of context, and writes a massive analysis. And then we just come back the next day, we put out the full context. Nobody says, that's really bad talk. But this is typically what happens in the age that we live in. It's very easy to distort sometimes. It's very easy for people to take out of, for people to also misunderstand. Maybe the person just listened to a blogger who cuts that part they put out, or somebody who wants to. But I always say, once you situate it in the context of what he said, it was a very empathetic presentation by the Honorable Vice President.
So what are some of the questions that the Sierra Leoneans in that hall in the UK asked the Vice President? Because some of them have not come to Sierra Leone for a very long time.
Look,
maybe what they've only heard and seen on social media is what they go by. So having an opportunity on that day to listen to the Vice President and other ministers, I mean, that might have given them an opportunity that they never thought of.
That's exactly what happened. It was a massive opportunity for so many people. So many people were like, we're putting our money in Sierra Leone. So you start from coming to Sierra Leone, the cost of coming to Sierra Leone, airport taxes, the cost of the boat fee, the inconvenience. A lot of people wanted to ask about that. They want to ask about Lungi, the gateway city. There was a lot of questions about that. We just talked about the economy and prices and what we're doing to manage the economy. People wanted to ask about that. People had a lot of questions about healthcare, how they can contribute to the really positive signs we're seeing in the healthcare industry in our country, what they can do to help that. That was a question that people had. People had a question about the feed support program and food security. What are we doing on those kinds of things? There was questions around road safety. When people are here, what are we doing on managing safety issues? It was a typical town hall. Classic questions from every single angle. And land was a very popular issue. Access to land, access to property, managing your land, real estate. There was a lot of these people who want an entry point back into the country. They think, oh, when I go Saturday, I'm Milos, it's a very traditional.
Well, these are the day-to-day issues that even Sierra Leoneans who live home. These are the same questions they ask.
That's exactly
the
why.
Inconveniences, for example, people say when you want to fly to the country, what you go through, whether you use Aberdeen or you go through the inconveniences you go through. These are the same questions. The issue of land, for example,
But that's exactly why it's very powerful for us to do a town hall in the UK, because they are Sierra Leoneans. They care just as much about this country as we all do.
Okay, in the audience also, did you have policymakers in Britain, the British politicians, for example, those who influence policies in the...
No, this was a town hall for Sierra Leoneans.
Because, some of them also follow.
We had
British
we had the British High Commissioner to Sierra Leone.
Okay.
Was in the UK and she attended. We're very grateful for her presence. So she could represent the British, I would say, ruling class in that respect. But this was really for our citizens who are in the UK. dual citizens who spoke up and boldly said, look, I'm British and I'm Sierra Leonean. Who said, I was born here. Young people who said, I've been born here, I've never gone to Sierra Leone, but Sierra Leone is my home. If I find a day born, my mama day born. And I care about that country. And a lot of them said, you have dispelled so many myths and rumors and falsehoods that have been spread about our country. And you've given us reason to hope, to believe, to see in very concrete terms that actually the things we're thinking about, you're actually also working on them. On land reforms, for example, on trade, for example, on access to investments, on moving capital from here to the, from UK to Sierra Leone. The minister spoke eloquently about these issues on peace and tripartite. We had the Peace Commission speak about peace issues, cohesion issues, how do we bring the country together and stuff like that. So it was a very substantive.
Well, I mean, so many people say sometimes the reality is different from what is being presented. Sometimes, I mean, the ministers will present, make a very beautiful presentation, but once you come to the ground, once you go to UPD, for example, you go to a ministry, whether the Ministry of Lands or the Ministry of Trade, you begin to see the reality contrary to what that minister said in that hall.
As I said earlier, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. What we can do is to break down and tell them what the policies are, what the different realities are. And we had people who were giving testimonials. Staff, for example, our brother, Mr. Njai, he gave a very compelling example of how, as an investor, he had a list of things he would tick for countries he would go into and bring his money in. He ticked all those boxes. He praised Sierra Leone for our level of transparency. He said, your country is a very fertile place for these kinds of investment. And he came and he got access to the Minister of Lands, gave him land. The minister made clear how you can have access to land. He said, now we're putting everything online. Write to us. Come up with a proposal. Show us that you have the money to do. I assure you we'll give you the land to do it. That's the reality of what is happening in the country today. Now, a lot of people have been burnt, and we talked about mining, for example, because you want to go through the shady because you want to cut small costs, you don't want to pay tax, and you end up, you're going to be duped. But if you come through the legitimate means, we're not perfect. There's still many things we can do different. The National Investment Board is a one-stop shop center, for example, for how you come into the country and invest. But we have the structures, we have the policies, we have the laws, we have the reforms that are on the way that President Bio has initiated. It's a wide range of reforms that he has initiated that I think many people have seen the benefits of.
Okay, the program is Bottom Line, coming to you from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation with me, Asimi Yuba. My guest today is the Minister of Information and Civic Education. We're going for a short break. After the break, we shall be back.
Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as it brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions have direct impact on your lives.
Bottom Line comes up every Thursday at 7 p.m. on SLBC TV, Channel 31 with Asmi Uba.
Bottom Line on SLBC TV, the program you can't afford to miss on SLBC TV, Channel 31. Join me now.
The show that touches every aspect of society as we leave no stone unturned.
It's Bottom Line, only on SLBC TV.
We are back with the program Bottom Line from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation with me, Asimi Uba. Minister, 3 years since President Bio began his second term, how can you describe his second 3 years in office?
Action. He is an action man. I think in that one word, which is the theme for this year, best summarizes what His Excellency has been up to. Result of dedicated action. He wants results for the people of this country. He promised a new direction. He promised the big 5 game changer. And on each one of those big 5 game changers, That's what he's saying. So on the affordability side, we're expanding the base. We're trying to get more people to earn. We have, just in the past 2 weeks, we announced close to $100 million in industrial investment into building new cement factory, new steel factory, new plants, new food factories, expanding the number of petroleum companies. All of these are jobs. That's what Preston does. And all of these translates to jobs that will affect people's lives and affects their
The 500,000 jobs that the president promised during his campaign, are you guys taking stock of that? How many thousands has
the
he
Ministry of
provided?
Labour actually has a tracker. And this is something that I'm sure we'll speak about more actually on how many jobs have been created. For example, just take the tourism sector, the number of jobs that are provided in that sector. It's not insignificant. The number of young people who are employed every day in the creative economy, different sector in the country. So the Ministry of Labour and Employment, my predecessor in this position, has done a very good job of doing a digital tracker of the jobs that His Excellency promised. And as he said, these jobs, you will be able to, you'll be able to get an account of them at the end of his tenure, at the end of his tenure in 2028, which he promised that you will have created about 500,000 jobs. That's something that he's worked on. But again, you take technology and innovation. You look at where we were, for example, on internet access in the country, mobile phone penetration on 3G and 4G. You look at what we're doing in terms of digitizing the way government does business, the payment systems. Every single one of them, you'll see that massive transformation in this country is not how it used to be because of the action of President Liu. And the public sector, you just saw the first celebration of the public sector. We now have a public sector code. We've done new laws, really trying to standardize the way the system works, recognizing people who are doing this hard work. On each and every one of the big five game changer areas, and the question of governance, I've said, is the most accessible president in the history of our country. He's done more engagements than any other president that I can think of. And open government. Every day you tune on any station, a representative of the government is on there. You don't struggle to find information. That's why he gets over 90% of freedom of information. That's why he's on policies, for example, on all the things I cared about before coming here, whether it's education, whether it's human rights, whether it's justice, women's rights. Nobody comes close to President Liu. If you take women's rights, for example, the progress is made with GBA, the progress is made with sexual offences laws, the progress is made with just empowering the Child Rights Act and pushing for the kinds of reforms that is wanted and that we're seen as dreams, eliminating the death penalty, the social reforms. The recommendations of the Criminal Reconciliation Commission, there is a package of actions, infrastructure, roads.
No,
He's built more roads
No,
than any other president
let's talk about the issue of, let's talk about jobs.
within the time period. At least.
Yeah, let's look at the mining sector, which is one of the job providers in the country, and also it feeds the economy. It's one of the generating areas for government. But take for example one of the biggest mining companies in the country, Koidu Holdings, has been shut down for a while. Many and hundreds of Sierra Leoneans have been out of job,
It's
and
easy
that should be worrying to the government.
absolutely. Look, every time a Sierra Leonean loses their job, it's a concern. The Minister of Labour will go out of his way to try to avoid that. But private sector in a free market economy, issues will happen. So what you ought to look at is not just one, you look at the aggregates, number of people now are in mining jobs. We have one of the biggest companies in the world today that is close to completing their pre-production and coming into business, FG Coal. In the past, companies like this will not come to Sierra Leone. They have already put on the ground in Sierra Leone over $1 billion in investment for extracting any gold out of it. It's one of the top companies in the world. That's because of the policies of President Xi Jinping. So yes, we have an issue with one company, smaller in size relative to us. But there are other investors we're talking to and other conversations that are going on as well, including on that question of solving that particular problem. The mining sector also is affected by global trends, right? Diamonds was affected for a while. But we have been very aggressive in advocating for natural diamonds in the world to have the value and to have the place that they should have. And we're seeing the returns.
What about the issue of value addition instead of just shipping out the raw material, as it happened with colonial days, so it is still happening? shipping the raw materials instead of converting them to finished goods.
That is part of what we're trying to do. That's why we're having the big companies to come here. It's very easy to say, oh, we should do these value additions here. Most of these things cost a significant amount of resources.
But it is done in other
Yeah,
countries.
but because they had the capital to make that investment, we don't, or we didn't. And what we're doing now is to lay the foundations to be able to do that. The vision is clear. We have a plan. We have a very competent team that running a Ministry of Mines and entire mining infrastructure in the country, overseen by Dr. President. And we've seen that in terms of, again, the level of investors, the quality of companies we're attracting into the country, and what we expect to get in terms of earnings from the mining sector. You can track that and see that actually we're headed in the right direction.
Now let's talk a bit about another issue when it comes to rebranding the country, Sierra Leone's image. Many people say the president spent a lot of time traveling, rebranding the country. But on the contrary, when you look at what has happened for the past 1 or 2 years, people say the rebranding effort that the president made has been defeated somehow. When you take a look at what is happening now, the issue of drugs all over the place, Sierra Leone is being named in many international media outlets. You hear about, when you say Sierra Leone, they either say a boat was traced coming to Sierra Leone, blah, blah, and that is affecting the image of the country. How would you respond to that as a government spokesman?
Last week, the World Peace Index came out. We are the second most peaceful country in West Africa. Sierra Leone, just only behind the Gambia. One of the most peaceful on the continent. We're chair of ECOWAS. We just came up with Security Council where we're applauded for exceptional leadership in Security Council. We sit on the AU Security Council. We will host for the first time in over at least 40 years. ECOWAS heads of state summit in Sierra Leone. We're hosting our West Africa Investment Summit. We have a compelling story to tell for reforms that we've had. His Excellency's travels have yielded positive benefits for our country. There is currently an attempt, somewhat, to kind of, tell a singular story about our country.
What is that story?
And the story that you refer to, the story of our country is mentioned in the same sentence as drugs. I'll say to
Well,
you,
that is a serious matter.
it is not an unserious matter. But we have done on the question of drugs, for example. His Excellency declared a national emergency. Did you know when the US declared the war on drugs? Since the 80s, they're still fighting that war. It's a transnational, sophisticated network. Here on the Kush crisis, nobody can tell me that President Bio has not done incredibly to respond to it with everything that we have as a state. Interrupted the market, ensured that the prices of Kush continue to go up while the supply goes down, invested in rehabilitation. That's a broad issue in our country. The Vice President responded to the question of the porosity of our borders and how that's affected somehow and means that either our country's name is being used, sometimes unfairly, by the way, sometimes it's completely unfairly. But you have a few reports and people want to say, oh, Sierra Leone is just like that. No, that's not the story.
Why would those who Sierra Leone is becoming a transshipment country for drugs?
I'll say that is simply not true. There's been allegations that have been made. These are serious allegations that we take very, very seriously.
And one of those
The Vice
allegations, for
President
example,
mentioned that we have hired, for example, European security companies to help us. What we run with our ports in Sierra Leone, and that's what Mr. Bio has said, Yakuba, who is the managing director at the port. We're landlords. We have European certified companies that are doing this inspection and these checks. When you talk about drugs and these kinds of issues, we don't make drugs here. We don't sell them here. They don't have a market here for the kinds of drugs. that
but
we
they use, well, I mean, it seems they are using Sierra Leone
This is an allegation.
as a hub
It's
to
an
take it to
allegation.
other
It's
countries.
an allegation that we take seriously. But we continue
That's
to
how
see-
it tends to affect a country's image,
It
if it has
does.
not affected it already.
It does. But look, I've always said this. The question is not accusations. The question is what you do with them, how you respond. Everybody, like the US has drug busts all the catch the drugs. In Europe, what does that mean? It means that their countries are actually the recipients of drugs. Where do these drugs come from? Where do these networks emanate from? Not us. So they cannot tag us as we are the drug states.
Okay, Mr. Amita,
So what we are doing is responding with serious. We acknowledge the challenges we have. We've acknowledged that. We've acknowledged that, hey, we may not have the full sophistication to man all of our ports. That there is a potential that people could take advantage of our lack of sophistication to influence us.
But
This is not a
one
state
thing
issue.
government has not acknowledged is that is the claim made by the Dutch government that one of their citizens who is a fugitive, Bella Jos for example, that he is in Sierra Leone.
But we cannot acknowledge what we don't have authoritative information on.
It has taken almost 2 years now. I mean, the government is still searching for him.
I have said before that the individual in question, by their own account, was their citizen, is their citizen, lived in their countries. They have more sophistication, more tools, more resources. They couldn't apprehend the individual. They said the person lived in other European countries. They have more sophistication, more money, more tracking. They couldn't. They said the individual lived in Turkey. More sophistication, more tools, more resources. They couldn't. So it is a tad unfair.
So as the government, have you resigned to faith that we are not that sophisticated to go in
No,
search
but
of
I'm
him?
just making clear that the efforts sometimes to blackmail us, and sometimes to use us as the scapegoat for their own challenges are transparent. And we have been clear, we cannot be blackmailed. We will do what we can do as a country.
If the
We are
government
serious
were
about our international
to apprehend Bella Just today, would the government repatriate him to extradite him
The
to?
government will follow
to
our
Holland.
laws and we will follow international law. That's always been our position. We're not, look, you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and just take you and go. Once, this is a determination that will be made based on law. There are international law that governs these kinds of things based on the relationships we have, what the international statutes are, and that's what's.
But this is an individual who has been named with many drug-related activities in Europe. He's a wanted man. He's a mafia, in other words. That's the Dutch government is in search of him, and they believe he's in Sierra Leone. But the government of Sierra Leone says, as far as we are concerned, he's not here. We've not seen him.
No, we don't go by what the Dutch government believes. We go by what we can prove.
So what has our own intelligence pointed to?
As I've said, we don't engage in speculation. Once the intelligence officials have a determination, they will come to me and they will tell me, and I'll come to the public and tell you. At this stage, they have not given me any new development on this issue. Once they do, then I'll come back.
Is this weighing the president down?
No. Anything that affects the country in general will be concerning to His Excellency because he cares deeply about this country and he thinks every day about how to continue to improve this country, attract the right kind of investments, which we have, by the way. World Bank just approved our Accelerated Credit Facility Program, and this is based on performance, so it means we're doing pretty well. Today, I can tell you we have a new announcement as well. This was IMF, I mean the Accelerated Credit Facility, we have a new announcement as well by the World Bank in the end of the sector that will come out today. It's a press release we just worked on. It shows the work His Excellency is doing is having very positive impact. It is having its intended effect. It does not mean he doesn't care about these issues and these concerns like that. He cares about them and we will continue to do what we can do.
The ECOWAS summit that Sierra Leone will host in July, some people have likened it to what Shaka Stevens did in 1980, the OAU, when he hosted the OAU. It had a heavy toll on Sierra Leone. Is the hosting of the ECOWAS summit in July going to have a heavy toll on Sierra Leone's economy? When you look at the amount of money that is being spent to build what is being built now in Lunge?
I can understand because people can only make references to what they are used to. So you had a one-party state that was draconian, allegedly. The bank governor was very clear that the state cannot afford this. Apparently, the bank governor was allegedly removed, and and they went about spending in ways that the country could not afford. Very different context. Today, I just told you, approved IMF, approved World Bank, over a period of time.
So they will run the, I mean, they are going to run the infrastructure after the summit.
So they've announced this that they will run it for a period of time. And the government will continue to pay down as part of, because it will be launched of course at the end of that period. So we'll be very clear on that. So the difference is dramatic from with what happened in the 80s.
Okay, now let's come back to this. You'll be going to McKinney next week to have another civic day.
So
McKinney,
I have a presidential town.
a presidential town hall. The last one was in Kerma, right?
Yes.
And the president did not attend.
Yes.
So how assured are you that he is going to attend this time around?
I'm as assured as I can be.
But you are very confident and upbeat
Look.
in Kerma.
The president is the president. You will have emergencies. His ECOWAS chair at the time was also Security Council. I don't remember if it was chair, it was definitely on the Security Council. And an emergency can happen. He's also a human being. He can have health challenges. Anything can happen, right? You can say, it's not immediate, so I mean, you can. But I can tell you that he is the one who wants to be McKinney. He's the one who chose McKinney as the venue for this. He's the one who's checking with us regularly on the plans that we have made. He's committed 100%, 1,000% to being with us in McKinney, to engaging the citizens of Sierra Leone from McKinney. You can definitely be rest assured that His Excellency the President. All
So why is President Bill so excited to go to McKinney?
because he's the man of the people. He understands how McKinney, we're not shy about it. McKinney is not our stronghold. McKinney is our opposition stronghold. But he's president for all of Sierra Leone. And he's delivered for every Sierra Leonean. And he believes in dialogue. He believes in political communication. He believes that even if you disagree with you, he should continue to have an engagement with you. He believes he can win your heart by the substance of the conversation. Not by demeaning each other, not by throwing stones, not by insults, but by a civic and a civil conversation. That's what's excited to be in McKinney, because he thinks that is like the place where he's normally regarded as the opposition stronghold, but he wants to show that as a leader, he's embraced all and he's embraced the people of McKinney to deliver for them as much as he delivered for the people of Sierra Leone.
So what do we expect to see in McKinney?
Expect to see an engaging
A
conversation.
town hall
A
of
town
what?
hall, an engaging conversation with the first gentleman of the country, covering a wide range of issues. We've gotten hundreds of questions from Sierra Leoneans from all over the country. We are going to package those questions as much as possible.
Unfiltered?
As much as we can. We're going to make sure that we get a substantive conversation. I've said to people, the president will sit test, we're not putting the president to an exam. We're trying to get substance. So we want to make sure that there are parameters of this conversation. Where the questions are coming from different areas. We take questions from people all across the country around very thematic issues. The president will respond. People will learn things they have never learned before. They will hear him in ways they have never heard him before. They will listen to him speak directly to them from his heart, not a script, not a speech, just talk and just engagement. And he will respond to questions directly from our citizens.
Okay, Minister, we don't have much time. We shall be rounding off shortly from now. Let me take you to another very interesting thing happening in your government. Issue of succession. Everybody wants to be a flag bearer. In both parties, the APC and the SNPP, and I see some members of your party also galvanizing support. You see people traveling here and there, not expressing the interest glaringly per se, but from the movement, has the president started thinking about who succeeds him?
We'll have to ask him when we get to McKinney maybe. You have a good chance as a citizen to send in your question, and maybe you'll get an answer from me. I know that as minister, I've been appointed and I took an oath to serve, and I know every day in cabinet it tells us, it asks us, it charges us to focus exclusively on delivering for the people of the country, to not lose sight of the responsibility to keep our eyes on the ball.
And we have colleagues of yours, ministers who, from their actions, one can tell that they are not seeing the ambition to succeed President Bill.
You'll have to ask them. I will not speak on what they are thinking about their lives or not. I know that for me and for His Excellency, focus on the ball and trying to make sure we deliver for the people.
And one name that has also come up is his wife, Madam First Lady.
You'll have to ask her.
We've had supporters of hers saying they once had to run for the flag of the SRPP.
I'm not here to speak about the SRPP or what the internal context of the SRPP. I want to speak about the government of Sierra Leone. And what the government of Sierra Leone State of the I want to speak to.
Are these not distractions?
Not
When you see government ministers from their actions, you know they want to, they are losing their ambition.
Not for me. It's not a distraction for me at all.
No, for the
I'm
government.
very committed to my work. I'm sure the government is very committed by the actions you're seeing and the results we're seeing. We're very committed to delivering for the people of this country.
So in 3 years, how do you think President Bio is to be rated?
We will ask him that question on the stage, I'm sure, about what his own reflections are. But as I've said, I think he's been an exceptional president, probably the best we've had in the history of this country, at least by my estimation. And there are a lot of very tangible data to point to that.
Okay, as Minister of Information, how do you normally cope with the criticisms, the disagreement? The other day, for example, you and Dr. Sylvia Bladin also, you said something and she said something contrary, and this issue. How do you cope with all of that?
It's the beauty of democracy. With all of this, I'd rather live in this time, in this country, in this context than anywhere else on earth. But we have citizens who I disagree with, but I respect. Sometimes they come at you in personal ways, but ultimately it's about how we advance the democracy of Sierra Leone, how we create a culture where we can engage with reason, with a level of decency, with civility. And for me, I say to people, I'm never too high and never too low. Some days everybody is writing nice things about you, same. Some days everybody is coming against you, same. Most important barometer for me is my conscience and my kids. I go home every day and know this is their father. And what I ask myself is whether I'm doing the best. That when they read about these things in the land, they'll be proud of their dad.
Some people say SIBA as a civil society is not the SIBA they see as information minister.
Can't be. I'm doing
What
it
has
as a job.
changed?
It's just my job. My heart is still where my heart is. I'm seeking to do the best I can every day. And that's what I say to people. You can disagree with me, you can not like me, but you will never accuse me of not giving my ultimate, absolute best and doing it with integrity and doing it with dedication and passion. That's what I have always sought to do in my life. That's what I do in this job.
Okay, well, that's how we end this edition of the program Bottom Line from the SRBC. Well, if you are in McKinney, don't forget, on Tuesday, right?
Tuesday, 30th June.
The 30th of June, the President, Dr. Julius Maada, will be in McKinney to address the people of this country. So, if you're in McKinney, it's a good opportunity for you to be where?
At the Unimac Auditorium.
At the Unimac Auditorium.
At
Be there.
2 p.m. prompt, we will start. So if you want to be there, you should get a ticket. You should register in advance, so we'll get a ticket because it's a
Is it free?
capacity. It's free. Nobody's paying for it, but you need to be registered to go because we want to keep seats for you. We don't want to have issues with crowd control and things like that. So yes, you should register with the link that's all over, and then you get a seat.
Okay. Well, that's it. Thanks to the rest of the team who has been working behind the scenes to ensure that this program is brought to you. On behalf of all of us, I've been here with Asmiba. Thanks for joining us, Honorable Minister.
Always a pleasure, sir. You're doing a terrific job. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. Well, he is the Minister of Information and Civic Education. Unfortunately, we cannot read the messages now because of time, but we're going to read them in our next edition. Thanks for watching. Till we join you again next week for a fresh edition of the program Bottom Line. God bless you. Goodbye. I have been your host, Asmiba.
Do you know the TV show that brings to you the decision makers who determine and shape the country's policies and programs? Bottom Line is the show to watch.
Well, join Asmi Uba as he brings to the table movers and shakers of society and policymakers whose decisions